Hi, everyone. I am Tianna Robinson. I am so excited and elated to be here with the World Women Foundation today. Thank you, Rupa, and the entire team for putting together this panel as we honor a very, very important day. Today is Juneteenth. It serves as a very monumental day in American history, but more importantly, the African American experience, as it signifies the day that enslaved people of a color were emancipated. So today we brought together the beautiful women of color who are shaping culture, commerce, and equality, and we're going to speak through the influence of Juneteenth. So I'm going to let these beautiful women introduce themselves. Again, I am Tianna Robinson, the founder and CEO of Intertwined Agency.
Hello, everybody. My name is Emore Campbell. I'm the Senior Group Director for Her Campus Media, based in Atlanta, Georgia.
It's still morning, right? Good morning. I am Shaquana Joseph. I am the Director of Strategic Accounts over at Group Black, based out of New York.
Okay, it works. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Deveraux Lawson. I am most recently the founder of Valerie Agency and head of marketing and culture.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Chantel George. I'm the CEO and founder of Sistas in Sales, based out of New York City.
Thank you. Thank you. So as we look back at Juneteenth, it's not just a day of emancipation. It is also a day that signifies liberty and the truest form of equality. So what I really want to hear from you ladies today is, how has Juneteenth impacted and affected the work that you're currently doing today? And feel free to randomly answer.
Well, I'll start off with a little bit of honesty. So I think in general, Juneteenth, as a Black woman that lives, works, breathes in the United States, has always been seriously impactful in terms of understanding of culture, understanding of place, and understanding of the context of how I exist. What I will say in specificity to your question of how Juneteenth has impacted my work, candidly, 4 years ago, so many people became, aware of Juneteenth that all of a sudden it did actually impact my work. I think before there hadn't been a lot of context, there hadn't been a lot of care, there hadn't been a lot of anything, or even understanding, as we learned that so many people were not aware of our own American history on the continent of North America, that it was invisible. We were invisible. And so I think in recent years, in both a great way and also a performative way, we've seen that a lot of us have had to lean even more deeply into something that is actually more spiritual for us than it had been in the past. And so now it's more of a balancing act of, am I leaning into this because this is something significant to culture and to the work, or am I leaning into this because we got to make folks feel good today that they've done something for Juneteenth?
I really love the fact, that you brought up 4 years ago. And just for context, 4 years ago is when the world saw a video of George Floyd being murdered, and a lot of attention was brought to the African American experience, and it really created a ripple effect within the culture where a lot of funding was created for African American, and whole DEI movement was woken up. And what we're witnessing now is that movement that was widely and hugely embraced is in a way being massacred. So thank you for bringing attention to that. Go ahead, Chantel.
I mean, I think she actually wrapped it up pretty efficiently. To your point, funding had opened up, and we're starting to see the inverse of that happening over 4 short years. So also, candidly, I'm a Caribbean American woman. So talking about a specific part of the diaspora sometimes is challenging for me because my exact experience is a little different than what the African American experience is, and I don't want to speak on it from that perspective. But what I will say is we're not a monolith. We're all from different parts of the world. And in one way, the Juneteenth phenomenon, which is how it feels, sometimes feels like it's put us a little backwards because now we're underneath one shell, where we're not, and then going back to try and explain the nuances of being a Caribbean American woman from the Bronx, which is that's me. And so I think we can maybe take more ownership of, being bold, like saying, hey, this is where I fit in this experience. We are not all the same. And while we are celebrating a very specific moment in time that happened to a very specific town in Texas, we are all coming at this from different perspectives. And let's just keep reminding everyone that part.
Thank you. I think demographically, it's important to speak about where you're from. And as a Southern American woman, we also, candidly, didn't have a lot to do with Juneteenth. We didn't celebrate it much. We knew of family members that might have celebrated or discussed it, but it wasn't huge in my household or in my community. But I think the phenomenon that we're talking about over the last 4 years does speak to the fact that there's still a lot of educating to be done, not only for the Black community, but I think it's a great time for everyone else to also be on board with us and to be a little bit of a backbone in this learning process. I think we've done a lot of really great work over the last 4 years, but also speaks to the amount of work we need to be doing. And so it's exciting to have these types of conversations, but also speaks to the fact that there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. In addition to that, speaking on kind of how this ties into the work, prior to that, especially when you are the only sitting in the room, these conversations are not happening. And then we fast forward and we have companies creating ice cream with labels around Juneteenth, and you're like, that's not it. Exactly. What does that taste like? Did you go to Galveston and get this vanilla? Not sure where that came from. But yeah, so it's like when you look and you try to monetize a cultural a moment in culture that is so significant, and it never took on that look of like it needs to be monetized, it was a celebration, then you come to us as the people or as the experts or the assumed experts in the room, and we either have to set you straight or course correct mistakes that you have made, which is difficult on us because then it falls on us. So I think holistically, while a lot of us are looking at how to celebrate this moment where we may not have been brought up doing it, or we didn't, or we're learning about it through our friends, we're also, as we said in advertising, challenged with how are brands doing this and do they have the right to play in that space where it's like we really just at some point want a moment to celebrate without you taking advantage of it.
I'm going to say something a little controversial. I think sometimes as a community, we forget to gatekeep more often. And because you said that, it made me go, well, do these brands need to be playing in this space? And why are they doing that? And is this strictly financial? Which is, hey, we are all in a business to make money. We're not here for free. But it does spark that conversation.
I think it's a matter of, you all work in advertising, brands just hopping onto trends without that cultural awareness and sensitivity that this is more than a moment. This is, in a way, not only my history, but the collective history of this entire country and even globally of the disparities that the entire world faces. So to segue into that, and just to piggyback off of what you said, Shaquana, what unique challenges do women of color face in their efforts to enact social change, not only in the workplace, not only in your career, but personally? It's a lot, right?
No, I just want to make sure everybody has a chance to say their piece before I go on my dissertation.
Get in there, girl.
Well, I think the impacts is so my previous role, prior to making the decision to go into business for myself, and to really channel my skills in a way that I feel is socially impactful as well as lucrative, was in DEI for a while. And I think the conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion is so passion forward for many of us because it's our lived experience that we're trying to create new pathways for. We're trying to build environments that not only other people get to experience, but also that we can survive and thrive in. And candidly, I found that to be a very violent experience often, where the intention to make change and the intention to fix the gaps that caused mental, physical, spiritual harm to so many Black women or other people feel, everybody kind of feels these spaces where you are left out, locked out, looked over, your money not good, the rent still got to be paid, you live in here trying to make it, and like you can't succeed because other people aren't finding your value. And yet there are these very systemic policies and privileges and precedents that are in place in this industry, in this marketing, creative, advertising industry that put us in positions where we have to decide whether our integrity is good enough or if we just have to kind of, do it for the money because everybody has that. And I think the harm that that causes is that I found as an inclusion leader who wants to make change, who did make change, who actually had the KPIs met that were set by my organizations that made that happen, that you are still constantly being put in positions where not only is that not good enough, but it's now being seen as, what was the word that was used? It was seen as being distracting, disruptive, And so what that feels like in the context of Juneteenth is when we ask why do these companies and these brands and these agencies and these, these tech behemoths, why do they care? The reality is that you don't care. It is an opportunity to commercialize and make money off of other people's pain because you know that they're constantly thinking about it. So if they're constantly thinking about it, they must be spending money on it. And let's give them something to spend that money on, while on the agency side, you're in the background making these crazy plates and red, black and green decor and trying to set happy hours when in reality, the basic rights everyone's asking for, all of us that have started something, I need to make enough money to live. I want to have dignity in the way I carry myself in the world. But to do that, I have to tap dance around all of these celebrations to share my culture that you're not even sharing anyway. Like you don't care anyway. And so I think that is the kind of mind gymnastics that like these conversations and this experience makes so many of us go through, because at the end of the day, what we're looking for is respect. And the understanding is what we're asking you to do to get to the respect, but all we want is that. And that's not necessarily how, at least this business, because it's the only experience I've had, that's not what they give us.
I would say just looking at it and from your everyday life experiences, like if we're honest, we create the culture. Like Black women create the culture, but beyond that, when you look at a household and the spending power, who's making the spending decisions within the household? So as Black in America, like we have trillions of dollars in spending power. But when you boil it down, women, for the majority, are the ones making the decisions. And then when you compound that with the fact of like, as a conscious Black woman, I'm making decisions and I'm trying to make them so that I can support my community, but I also want the best quality for myself. But I know that how dollars play into this and how shelf space plays into this if you're spending, which a regular person going into a grocery store is not going to think through all of this as someone in advertising or a person who is trying to support their community, where all of that does tend to weigh on you just in your everyday life. Like we were just talking out there and I was like, oh, I ran out to Target to get the Future collection because if we don't buy into it, it's not going to continue. At the end of the day, all these companies are looking to drive revenue. There's a bottom line that we need to feed into. So just that added pressure of ensuring that I'm supporting my community while making sure I'm making the best decisions for myself on an everyday basis, and leading my household to do the same is kind of like the pressures that at least I take on, that I feel like a lot of us take on without even acknowledging or putting words to it.
I would say
Can you hear me? Yes. I would say that part of the challenge that I'm experiencing, even thinking about today's panel, it's pretty emotional to try to understand how vulnerable do I want to be around this concept and this idea. While I understand it's supposed to be a celebratory day, but at the same time, to your point, it's extremely traumatic. And I was talking with my team about how much do I want to talk about the dehumanization of Black people today, and go about my day and still be present, like, right? And first thing in the morning. So right. And the generational trauma that we all feel, even though we ourselves were not on those plantations, individually. At CIS, what we talk a lot about, we are a network of women of color in sales. And when we think about how we impact business and how we impact the world, we tell our members to think about their financial contributions to the businesses that they work at. Because when we take away, and not to say that we shouldn't be vulnerable, we shouldn't be emotionally connected to ourselves, we shouldn't be present, that we are Black women or we are women of color in our spaces, but can we get into the habit of talking about our impact? Can we get into the habit of our elevator pitch, not necessarily being about our skin color, but how much revenue we've driven for the organization and how we're number one, how we're at President's Club, and how, because of the deal we closed, it's delivered X amount to the bottom line. Those are the things that give me solace, that give me peace, that give me grounding, that we are often not encouraged to do. So we have to remind ourselves to put that into our language and put that into our everyday behavior. Because to your point, there's so many gymnastics going on in our minds. And what gives me the stability is knowing the brass tacks. And being aware of that, my individual contribution to any organization that I'm a part of and anything that I do in any space that I'm in. So that's how I mentally deal with this. But, I appreciate that it's a celebration. It's a celebration because of a traumatizing experience. Something to just remember when we're talking about it holistically.
I think the main obstacle that I face is who I'm going to be protecting, serving, standing behind for that day, for that time. I feel like because Black women are literally, to me, in general, the creators of all things, right? I think we do a really good job of being the blueprint for a lot of other cultures and communities, which means we're also responsible, or it feels like we're often responsible for how that's perceived or how other people can play in that space safely. Like, it really is up to us. But with that being said, it's like, okay, well, do I always support my community because it's the right thing to do? Or do I need to make sure that I get to hire an Asian American woman on my team over the Black woman on my team? Do I ensure that this campaign is X, Y, and Z over this other campaign that I know is going to benefit my community? Like, how do I select, even though I know that I feel like I'm responsible for everybody else behind me if they're considered an other? I think the way that I get through that is just through a ton of conversations like this, but also being understanding that I'm not going to be able to save the world, not in one campaign, not in one day, not with one conversation. But it's still, again, a work in progress every single day.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for your vulnerability and your honesty, because it is a lot to unpack for just one day. It's almost like being asked. It's just for reference. I think Juneteenth, the holiday, just went into effect 2 years ago, I believe. And we're being asked to celebrate and unpack over 400 years of very traumatizing history into one day. And that is very difficult. And then put on a face. And then, like a lot of you said, most of you said, we really do create and impact the culture. So that, with that being said, as we speak through our economic influence, our cultural influence, what are some ways that you've, and let's set Juneteenth to the side right now. What are some ways that, you as an individual and you as your team, that you are impacting and creating the culture?
This direction. Okay. I mentioned this earlier, right? Being a sales organization, the number one thing that we're looking at is how is our community being the best sales women they can be at their respective large organizations. And we partner with global brands. Most of those brands are actually here at Cannes, and they're seeking out sales leaders and revenue leaders. And what we're doing, we're campaigning and championing for that. Eric and Hannah, who's with the team right here, to say, well, why not these women? They're number one in their organizations. They have this background, they have this experience, they have this acumen. And so for us, like I said to you earlier, like I do appreciate the celebration and the complicated day, but at the end of the day, to your point and everyone else's point, it is about the revenue. And for me, when I'm looking at the leadership board, I want to see women of color at the top because we deserve to be there because we're really good at what we do. And at the same time, Black women specifically are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs. So when starting this company, I said to myself, if Black women have the acumen to be the number one fast growing group of entrepreneurs, we have the same acumen to be excellent in corporate America and in tech and technology. So that is that.
That's that on that. Yes. Okay. I think my contribution to this from a commercial perspective, cultural perspective, I've given a lot of myself, I believe, to this business, to the marketing world, to the advertising world, often to feel left to the side, as a face, not necessarily as an impactful voice, as a changed voice, it's perceived that way, but it doesn't always feel that way. And I feel like a lot of that has to do with not owning my own decision making. Like that is an actual skill I feel I have, a power I have. And so deciding to start my own ad agency, deciding to name it after a Black woman from this industry, deciding to take on projects that I feel are rooted in true creativity with true challenges that deserve a true lens of problem solving that is already inclusive of the inclusion conversation. It's not the let me pass this off to my DEI person to make sure it checks my boxes, but rather coordinating with the team to actually think through all sides of the problems to make sure that we're solving for all of the gaps is how I am choosing to live in a way that is positively impactful to my people, to my community, to this world, to this universe. I feel that oftentimes, in addition, I think it is very important, and I've been a staunch supporter of growing in the corporate world because we do deserve to be there. We do deserve to influence from the inside. But I have found for my own self that there's also spaces and places where it becomes important for us to create our own infrastructures as well in tandem so that we can work with our peers in the corporate spaces. And yes, agencies are corporate spaces, no matter how many rips are in our jeans. That it is very important for us to be able to also be pure decision makers, not just de facto or face forwarding decision makers. And for me, kind of stepping in that space after being on the inside for so long and finding success there is really important. And I think it'll create a not a new, but it will empower others to do the same while also letting my sisters that are on the inside know that if you need me, holla, I'm here, and we can figure out how to work together.
I think it's amazing that you said infrastructure because it instantly made me think, I think my contribution is ensuring that I am and everyone that's coming behind me are authentically Black in workspaces, just unapologetically, unabashedly Black and Black woman centric in everything that we do. I think I looked up just now and I thought it was interesting. Everybody on this panel has braids, which in 10 years ago, we would not have been doing because it wouldn't have been seen as professional. It wouldn't have been a thing. And I looked down, okay, we're looking good. Okay. We're looking amazing. But I think we need to carry that same energy every single day to every single meeting, to every single space, to every single large space like this. And just like not being afraid to be as Black as we can be and as amazing as we are.
Wait. Before you go, Shaquana, I just want to say something, Emore, because Emore and I used to work together.
Way back.
10 years ago, we were
Yeah.
the first Black sellers in a class at Yelp selling ads. And we took cues from each other about how authentic we could be. And Emore came from the South. She was her authentic self. And I'm from a Caribbean community where we were like touching around how to show up in spaces. And she was there with her shortcut running around. She was like, come on, girl, we're going to get lunch. We're going to, you know what I mean? And that was transformative for me. So you're still walking the walk and talking the talk 10 years later.
Yes, I love this. Come on. For me, I think it's important. So like, I think back to coming into this industry, I knew nothing about it. And today my family still can't tell you what I do. And that is fine. I've tried to break it down in multiple ways, Super Bowl, all of that. And I'm like, I make money. I can pay my own bills. But beyond that, there's that taking that leap of not knowing and just going into something where it was like, I can do this and I'm going to find my way and I'm going to pave the way. Now I really strive to ensure that other people know what this industry is. It's not just creative, because I think a lot of times when we think about advertising, it's creative. No, baby, I make a lot of money. Like, I enjoy the creative part, but I want money. And and because of that, exposing younger people or even peers that don't understand, exposing them to exactly what it is that I do and what the skill sets are and what the transferable skill sets are for you to get in this industry. Because like Chantel said, we're number one in a lot of these spaces and places, but no one is looking at it in that way. So, or they don't understand. So how can I help you to understand, so that you too can make money and you too can change your tax bracket, so that we can continue to have an impact on the economy, because ultimately dollars make change.
Can I add some sister love too? Because I've known Shaquana for over 10 years also. No, and I say this in jest, but also in truth, which is usually how I speak. Like, you got to find the humor because sometimes it hurts, right? I went to college with Shaquana, and speaking, shout out to Howard University on this Juneteenth, HU, you know, right? And I love that you gave Emore her love, because I do also feel that we came into the industry at the same time as well. And I took so many cues. The way we met was funny. I'm gonna tell y'all later, but I took so many cues from Shaquana as to like how to carry oneself in business, not having, also coming from a Latin American background. You know, my family don't know what I do. Child, are your bills paid? Can you just not call me this month? Like, that's the kind of stuff they wanted. And watching Shaquana always focused on money, always focused on saving, always focused on finances, always focused on making sure we had food in our fridge when we lived together. Thank God for you. Like, I think that kind of sisterhood, brotherhood, friendship in this community and kind of guiding us forward is what's important. And I think in the spirit of Juneteenth, when we talk about the celebration after the trauma, is the survival, and how important it has been for all of us to form these communities, be it small or large, to help with our advancement and survival. So my hat's off to you lovely women on this powerful stage, because it is because of each other and because of you that we are able to find comfort and success in a very uncomfortable business.
Yeah, I love you too, girl. That right there, that's that Black girl magic. That is how we uplift one another and support one another. As we close this panel, as you all heard, there's a lot of responsibility, sometimes obligation that you might not want when you wake up in the morning. You might just want to be a person going to your job, doing a great job. Sometimes it's heavy to be a Black woman and go into spaces and have to not only advocate, but educate and create change and impact change. It's like, man, I just want to do my report today. How can our community, our peers, on a micro and a macro, but more importantly, a global level, really support and raise awareness and impact change so there can be equality for not only Black women, but for everyone?
I'll start. You have to start with taking care of yourself. Like, while we want to be the superheroes and we want to have impact and all of that, if your cup is not full, you can't fill anyone else's cup. And I feel like oftentimes it takes for us to be beyond empty before we actually notice that we need help. So ensuring that you're pouring into yourself. Listen, I picked up tennis. That is I don't know how to play. Don't ask me to, actually do ask me to play, challenge me. Not saying I'm good, but what it is that it's something outside of work that I can go, I can do, I can learn. I'm still pouring into myself. I'm picking up new skills without thinking about the impact that I have to make and all of these things that are always on me. So ensure that you are pouring into yourself, however that looks, and taking care of yourself, because you can't help others if you have nothing to truly give.
Self-care is the best care. Emore, you want to wrap it up?
Sure. I think what we need to be doing is understanding that we will not be able to figure it out all in one day, nor in this lifetime. But I think specifically for me and the women on this panel, understanding that although it is our problem, it ain't our problem. I'm not going to be able to, again, sit down in this room and figure it all out for the rest of humanity, or for the rest of the culture in the community. But if everybody just does that little bit, their little bit of a part, making their little bit of a change every single day, then I feel like it'll just blanket across everything that we need to go. Just that little bit, but understanding I'm not a superhero and I don't really want to be. I don't want that responsibility. I'm amazing, but I'm not a superhero. And that's that.
So I'll speak to the allies, peers, partners. I would say, I think a lot of people, but I think Black women from all aspects of the diaspora are really not looking to teach anymore. I think, especially in my role in DE&I. Child, girl, Miss Farrah, that's my therapist. She's just so over me talking about this. But no, I think we're often left to do the education. Please tell me on Juneteenth what it's like to be you. Right. And while I recognize and appreciate the inquiry, what I think we are hoping to see I think it might be over 500 years now. I think 400 was the rhetoric in like the 90s. So over a long period of time, we are often left to have to educate, to empathize, to give space, give grace, let people learn. You know, you have to, this is new to so many people, but it's always new to everybody, right? And then we can't do it by just saying the thing. We have to dance around it. We have to be delicate about it. You have to be kind and empathetic when you're talking about it. Meanwhile, our entire lives, and I think I can speak on behalf of anyone who's ever been marginalized, you've been told what you're not good at, where you don't belong, who you will never be, what you'll never look like. And so we've had to take the hard truths of life and continue to go and be graceful and laugh about it that's why we got bright colors on and we're telling jokes on Juneteenth, right? And so what I would say to our peers and our supporters and how to be better is that it's your turn to kind of take the hard truths. And if somebody tells you you're not being a good partner, it's because you're not. To them, they are not perceiving your intention with the impact that you intended. And to take that and to just try to do better in the moment. I don't think any of us are expecting, racism to go away tomorrow the way so many people did in 2020. I think we know it's a journey that we're just on this short ride for. And so what we'd like is more community around that grace for us, more empathy around us having to relive that trauma, and also more support in your own education of your own communities with your own amplifications. And at the end of the day, per Shaquana, we really just trying to get these checks so that we can pay these bills. And so let's not skimp on these budgets.
I love that. I'm right. I was going to say that we are very rehearsed on speaking negatively about ourselves. And we are not as rehearsed about speaking positively about ourselves. So we could practice speaking positively about ourselves. I got into the sales business because it's a dollars and cents kind of game. It's either you got to the number or you didn't. And I like that because I like that binary way of describing things, either hot or cold, black or white. And I think that I've had to learn how to speak positively about myself because from a numbers perspective, you just have to. Like I did 150% of my number. I closed this deal I did this, I did that. And like, that was my relief. That was my freedom. It's not something that lives in the gray. It's not something that you can challenge me on. You know, back in the day when we were calling 100 people a day, pushing ads, we had our names on a wall. Black, white, blue, purple, otherwise, the names are on the wall. And I took pride in beating everyone on that wall every day. And I could rehearse that in my mind, and it gave me confidence, and it gave me the ability to walk into the room with pride. And so how often are we talking positively? How often are we rehearsing that positive story? And I just want us to think about that as we go through the world, as we go through life. We are being told negative things in the media every day, and it's in our skin, it's inside of us all the time. And there's not enough media that's speaking to us positively. So we have to create it for ourselves. We have to, because if we don't, it's going to take over our mental space. So ultimately, that's my challenge for you today. How often can you speak positively about yourself, no matter what you look like? And for me, like I said, it was a numbers thing, and it may be something different for all of you.
Thank you for your excellence, for your brilliance, and for your time. Thank you, Rupa. Thank you for the World Women Foundation. Hope this was impactful, but like all these ladies said, continue to educate yourselves, educate your community, and really foster a community of support globally. Thank you.